On March 15, 1944, over Brunswick, Germany, Captain James "Red" Holt sharply banked his P-47 Thunderbolt, scanning the empty sky above the endless stream of bombers. 800 B-17 flying fortresses rumbled on, heading for their targets. Each carried 10 young Americans and enough ordnance to level an entire city block. Somewhere in that vast gray haze, German fighters were gathering. Holt could feel their presence. The statistics were merciless. Since January, the 8th Air Force had already lost 284 heavy bombers, meaning 2,240 men would never see home again. Escort fighters, like Holt's 359th Fighter Squadron, couldn't be everywhere at once. The Luftwaffe knew this perfectly well. They had developed a new, deadly tactic: ignore the escorts and attack the stragglers. Damaged bombers limping behind the formation. Crippled birds with feathered props and smoking engines. Easy prey. Just yesterday, Holt had watched helplessly as 6 FW-190s swarmed a damaged B-17 called Memphis Belle II. The bomber lasted only 43 seconds. This morning's intelligence briefing reported the same pattern over 37 missions. German fighters specifically targeted battle-damaged aircraft, avoiding healthy ones and refusing to engage the fighter cover. The math was simple and brutal. When fighters escorted intact bombers, the Germans waited. But when bombers showed damage, the Germans pounced, doing so 3 miles from where the American escorts were flying. By the time Holt's squadron reached the attack site, it was all over. "We're protecting the wrong planes," Holt muttered into his oxygen mask. What he didn't know, what no one in the 359th Fighter Squadron knew, was that in exactly 4 hours, a 24-year-old artist from Brooklyn with no military aviation experience would sketch an idea on a napkin that would turn this deadly game on its head. An idea so simple, so audacious, that when he first presented it, his squadron commander would call it the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. This idea involved paint, theater, and the oldest military trick in the book: making your strength appear to be a weakness. Within 30 days, this controversial tactic would lure 40 German fighters into carefully prepared ambushes. It would save an estimated 180 American bombers. It would violate at least 3 articles of the Geneva Convention and would remain classified for the next 47 years. This is the story of how one squadron started painting its planes to look damaged and turn the hunters into the hunted. Imagine you're flying thousands of feet up, surrounded by the deadly ballet of war, and suddenly you realize that your own vulnerability has become your death sentence. What if we told you that your pain, your damage, your weaknesses could become your most powerful weapon? How did one squadron, facing unbearable losses, find a way to turn the enemy's deadly tactics against themselves? And how did ordinary paint and ingenious trickery change the course of air battles, saving hundreds of lives? We've all been in situations where there seemed to be no way out, when circumstances were overwhelming and you felt like easy prey. But what if, in these very moments, lay the key to victory? We know what it's like to be on the brink, but we also know that even in the most desperate conditions, an unexpected solution can be found. The crisis began long before March 1944. It originated with a German pilot named Josef "Pips" Priller, who in December 1943 realized what Allied command had not yet grasped: damaged bombers were predictable. "A healthy bomber fights," Priller wrote in his tactical doctrine, circulated throughout JG-26. "A crippled bomber runs. It separates from the pack. Its escort cannot protect what it cannot reach. We do not hunt the strong. We finish off the weak." The results were devastating. In January 1944 alone, 73% of bombers lost over Germany were stragglers that had fallen behind the formation due to battle damage, mechanical failure, or wounded crew members. The Luftwaffe developed wolf-pack tactics specifically designed to exploit this vulnerability. German fighters patrolled at a distance, watching, waiting for telltale signs. A smoking trail, feathered propellers, an aircraft losing altitude, and then they would strike. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. American Fighter Command tried everything. They assigned rescue fighters to escort damaged bombers home. The Germans simply waited until these escorts reached their fuel limit and turned back. They increased fighter patrols around bomber routes. The Germans attacked in the gaps. They developed new radio protocols for damaged aircraft to call for help. The Germans jammed the frequencies. Major General William Kepner, commanding the 8th Fighter Command, held a crisis meeting on February 28, 1944. Gentlemen, we have a problem that cannot be solved by tactics alone. The enemy has turned our wounded into bait. Every crippled bomber becomes a death sentence for its crew and for the fighters we send to save it. All the experts agreed that the solution was to prevent damage in the first place. Better armor, tighter formations, greater defensive firepower. But these were engineering solutions that would take months or years. Meanwhile, men were dying every day. Squadron commanders were tearing their hair out. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman of the 359th Fighter Squadron threw his cap across the briefing room after losing 3 fighters trying to protect one damaged B-24. They're using our wounded as traps. We see a limping bomber. We rush to help, and suddenly we're outnumbered 4-1, with half our fuel already gone. It's brilliant. It's ruthless. And I don't know how to stop it. The consensus among tactical experts was clear. There was no counter to this strategy other than abandoning the stragglers. Several senior officers quietly proposed implementing a survival of the fittest policy, damaged planes left to fend for themselves. The proposal reached General Dwight D. Eisenhower's desk. He wrote one word on it in red pencil: never. But noble sentiments weren't saving lives. The losses continued. By mid-March, bomber crews feared being damaged more than being shot down. At least if you're destroyed, it's quick. If you're hit, it means a slow 30-minute chase across hostile skies while German fighters take turns shooting pieces off your plane, and your friends die trying to reach you in time. Sound cue. Quiet. Sounds of combat in the background. What if you were told that the most terrifying problems could be turned into your greatest weapons? What if we could not only stand our ground but also put the enemy to flight, using their own instincts against them? How often have you found yourself in a situation where there seemed to be no way out and any attempt only made things worse? This isn't just a story about war. It's about how ingenuity and unconventional thinking can turn the tide when all traditional methods have been exhausted. We will delve into a world where despair was the norm, and every sortie could be the last. In this video, we'll learn how one man, without combat experience but with a sharp mind, managed to change the rules of air combat. We'll explore the questions he asked himself to find a solution when others saw only a dead end. And finally, we'll see how his ideas not only saved lives but also made the enemy dance to a different tune. Get ready to discover how deception, cunning, and art can be stronger than a bullet. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. At a time when the skies over Europe became the arena for the most brutal air battles, American pilots faced not only enemy fighters and anti-aircraft fire, but also a more insidious adversary: psychological pressure. German aces, like predators, sought out wounded aircraft. preferring to attack already damaged bombers that lagged behind their formations. This led to horrific losses and undermined morale. Pilots returned from missions with exhausted faces, reporting damage that sometimes turned out to be phantom. Mission cancellations increased, and some crews even requested transfers to the Pacific Theater, where, they felt, the enemy fought more fairly. It was at this critical moment that Technical Sergeant Daniel Weiss entered the scene. He was only 24, and his past was far removed from the harsh realities of war. Before enlisting, he was a commercial artist at the prestigious advertising agency J. Walter Thompson, and now served as a senior technician in the 359th Fighter Squadron. Weiss had no combat experience. He had never flown a fighter. His duties were limited to maintaining landing gear hydraulics and applying kill markings to fuselages. However, he had a Cooper Union Art degree, 3 years of creating deceptive advertising campaigns, and most importantly, an unbiased outsider's perspective, free from established military dogma. On March 15th, he sat in the officers' club, sketching on a cocktail napkin. Daniel Weiss never sought to change the course of the air war. He simply couldn't bear to see the exhausted faces of the pilots returning from combat. Weiss grew up in Brooklyn, in an immigrant family who owned a kosher deli. From childhood, he drew on butcher paper, dreaming of becoming an artist. However, the Great Depression intervened, and he found himself in an advertising agency, creating ads for Pond's Cold Cream and Lucky Strike cigarettes. His specialty was making products appear to be what they were not, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary, directing people's gaze where he wanted it. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, Weiss tried to become a pilot, but failed the eye test due to mild color blindness. He then tried to become a bombardier, but failed again. He was ultimately assigned as a senior technician, which Weiss compared to training as Rembrandt and being assigned to paint houses. Nevertheless, he was extremely meticulous and perfectly understood how things looked versus how they actually were. Upon the plane's return from missions, Weiss was the one who inspected the damage, coordinated repairs, and returned the aircraft to service. In 6 months, he learned to read battle damage like a language. He knew what flak bursts looked like on aluminum skin, how bullet holes clustered, and which damage was fatal, and which was merely theatrical. On the evening of March 15th, he sat at a corner table in the officers' club. Formerly enlisted men were forbidden there, but his presence was tolerated because he was popular and kept the pilots company as they grieved the day's losses. Captain Holt, already quite tipsy after 3 whiskeys, recounted the B-17 he couldn't save. "They smell wounded planes," Holt said, "like sharks smell blood. How do you fight an enemy who won't engage unless they have an advantage?" Weiss listened half-heartedly, sketching on a napkin, an old nervous habit. He drew a P-47 but added theatrical battle damage, smoke streaming from an engine that looked not quite real, bullet holes that were too symmetrical. It was a caricature, a cartoonish depiction of damage. Then his pencil stopped. He stared at the napkin, at the fake damage he had drawn. "What if we make them think they have an advantage?" Weiss said softly, as if thinking aloud. Holt didn't hear him. Weiss spoke louder. "Captain, what if we make them think they do have an advantage now?" Holt looked up irritably. "What are you talking about, Sergeant?" Weiss slid the napkin across the table. "Your P-47 flying escort, but painted to look damaged, with a smoking trail. Theatrical smoke, not real. Painted bullet holes, stage makeup, flying like it's crippled, lagging behind, looking weak." Holt's eyes narrowed. "It's reverse camouflage. It's a lure." "And when they come for what they think is easy prey," Weiss said, drawing 6 more P-47s diving from altitude. The trap snaps shut. Holt was silent for a long moment. "So you want to turn escort fighters into bait?" "I want to turn our strengths into their weaknesses," Weiss said. "They hunt wounded animals. We'll give them a wounded animal with teeth." The next morning, Weiss expected to be ridiculed in the briefing room. Instead, Lieutenant Colonel Dickman listened silently to the entire presentation. Then he uttered 6 words that changed everything. "Show me. You have 48 hours." Weiss took over a corner of Hangar 7 and 3 P-47s designated for routine maintenance. He assembled his team: Corporal Tommy Chen, a former Disney animator, Private First Class Marcus Wright, a theatrical makeup artist from Harlem, and Staff Sergeant Irene Kowalski of the Women's Army Corps, who had worked in her father's auto body shop in Detroit. What they created over the next 2 days was part art, part engineering, part theatrical magic. The first challenge, painted damage, wouldn't fool anyone up close. Weiss needed 3-dimensional realism that would work from 500 yards. Wright suggested cellulose acetate sheets, a transparent theatrical gel, thermoformed and painted to look like damaged aluminum, then attached with quick-release fasteners. From a distance, they were indistinguishable from real battle damage. Up close, they detached in seconds. The second challenge, smoke trails. Real engine damage produces thick black smoke. Weiss reverse-engineered German smoke generator systems from a captured Bf-109, creating an underwing pod that produced theatrical smoke on command. White or black, controlled from the cockpit. The smoke looked wrong to a trained mechanic, but perfect to a fighter pilot 3,000 yards away making an attack decision. The third challenge, selling the illusion with behavior. A damaged aircraft not only looks different, it flies differently. Weiss created a performance checklist: reduce speed by 40 miles per hour, gradually lose altitude, occasionally feather one propeller, fly slightly out of trim. Captain Holt practiced this technique, flying as a perfect imitation of a crippled aircraft while remaining fully combat capable. Imagine the nightmare. You're in the sky, your plane is burning, smoking, wounded. You're an easy target, and the enemy, instead of passing by, circles, ready to deliver the killing blow. Is that a familiar feeling, when your weakness becomes the cause of your demise? When you feel cornered, and there seems to be no way out? What? How? Is this about me? Perhaps such thoughts raced through your mind in the most difficult moments. We know that feeling when circumstances press down and you seem defenseless. But what if we told you that this very vulnerability could become your most powerful weapon? What if a wounded predator could turn against its pursuer? In this video, we will unveil an incredible story that unfolded in the skies of World War II, when American aces, exhausted by the German tactic of finishing off crippled planes, found a way not just to survive, but to win. How did they manage to turn a smoking engine and bullet holes in the fuselage into a deadly trap for the enemy? And how did this idea, balancing on the edge of what was permissible, manage to change the course of air battles? Get ready to learn how deception, cunning, and art can be stronger than a bullet. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. It was in such an atmosphere of desperation and the search for unconventional solutions that on March 17th, 3 modified P-47 fighters were presented to Lieutenant Colonel Dickman. These aircraft looked as if they had just miraculously returned from the battlefield. Their fuselages were riddled with fake bullet holes, their wings damaged, and theatrical smoke billowed from their tails, simulating a crippled engine. Yet each plane remained fully combat capable, ready at any moment to drop its mask of helplessness and rush into battle. Dickman slowly walked around them, his gaze meticulously examining every detail, his fingers touching the artfully crafted damage imitations. He watched as the smoke generators created a convincing illusion of malfunction. The long silence pressed down on everyone present. Finally, breaking the quiet, he uttered words that sounded like a verdict. "This is a direct violation of the laws of war. False flag operations, flights based on deception. Sergeant Weiss, the author of this audacious idea, immediately, momentarily forgetting military protocol, interrupted him. "We are not altering our identification markings, sir. Our aircraft remain clearly identifiable as American. We are merely creating the appearance of malfunction." Lieutenant Colonel Dickman continued, ignoring his words. "Doctrine clearly states fighters are offensive weapons, not bait." To this, Captain Holt, one of the pilots, boldly replied, "Sir, with all due respect, the Germans have long since turned our crippled bombers into death traps. We are merely giving them a taste of their own medicine." Dickman once again fell into deep thought. Then he turned to his operations officer. "How long will it take to train the entire squadron in these methods?" The answer was concise. 48 hours, sir." "Begin training," Dickman ordered. "But not a single word about this is to leave this hangar. Not to other squadrons, not to intelligence, not even to God Almighty. If this plan works, we will expand the program. If not—" his gaze stopped on Weiss. "Sergeant Weiss will spend the rest of this war painting numbers on latrine doors." Weiss swallowed hard, realizing the gravity of the situation. "Yes, sir." "And one more thing," Dickman added. "I will lead the first mission myself. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And, of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from." News of such an unusual scheme, developed in the 359th Squadron, spread like wildfire, much faster than classified information should. Within 72 hours, Colonel Hubert Zemke, the legendary commander of the 56th Fighter Group, heard about the crazy bait tactics. He personally arrived to witness the spectacle. Zemke observed a demonstration flight. In the sky, 3 damaged P-47s, like wounded birds, limped along, trailing plumes of smoke and conspicuously wobbling, creating a perfect illusion of easy prey. Meanwhile, 8 other P-47s circled invisibly at 15,000 feet, waiting for their moment. The lures worked flawlessly, becoming an irresistible target for any predator. After landing, Zemke wasted no time, pressing Lieutenant Colonel Dickman against the hangar wall. "Is the 8th Fighter Command aware of this?" he asked. "Not yet, sir. My assessment is they would immediately forbid it." Zemke paused, deep in thought. He was the most successful fighter commander in the European theater of operations, credited with 75 confirmed kills. A living legend who had rewritten tactical doctrine, his opinion carried immense weight, capable of making or breaking careers. "I want to be part of this," Zemke declared. "It's either brilliant or it's going to lead to a court-martial. Either way, I want my group involved before headquarters has a chance to bury the idea." Thus, March 20th arrived, the day of the decisive demonstration. Fighter Command sent a full delegation, Major General William Kepner, and a staff of 12 high-ranking officers to evaluate the program and make a final decision to sanction or prohibit its use. They gathered in the briefing room at Boxted. The room was filled with squadron commanders, intelligence officers, Army Air Forces legal officers, and one very nervous technical sergeant who, at that moment, probably regretted every life choice that had led him there. Sergeant Weiss presented the concept: fake damage, dramatic smoke, simulating a crippled aircraft, and ambush tactics. He endeavored to use terms that sounded as military as possible: deceptive engagement protocol, and asymmetric response strategy, to make it sound more convincing than simply, "We're going to trick them with paint and trap them." The legal officer immediately interrupted him, his voice full of indignation. "This is clear perfidy, directly contravening Article 23 of the Hague Convention. The use of false distress signals to lure the enemy is strictly forbidden." Weiss countered, "We are not using distress signals, sir. We are not operating under false flag. We are employing camouflage. Yes, it's deceptive camouflage, but camouflage nonetheless." Camouflage makes you less visible, the lawyer retorted. This makes you a liar. The room erupted. 16 officers spoke at once, voices rising. Some expressed support. Anything to stop this bloodshed. Others condemned. We are not Nazis. We do not use deception. The argument split along predictable lines. Combat officers were eager to try the new tactic, while staff officers sought to bury it. General Kepner allowed the argument to continue for about 3 minutes. Then he stood, and the room instantly fell silent. Gentlemen, I have a question for the legal officer. When the Germans developed the tactic of specifically targeting our damaged aircraft, did they violate any convention? No, sir. Targeting the wounded is unsportsmanlike, but not illegal. And when we paint our aircraft to look damaged, are we engaging in deception? Sir, like any camouflage scheme in military history. This is different, Kepner interjected, his tone icy. Because it makes the enemy uncomfortable, not us. The Germans turned our wounded into death traps. They weaponized compassion. And you're telling me we can't respond because it's unsportsmanlike. The legal officer had no answer. Kepner turned to Captain Holt. You've flown this profile. Can you maintain full combat effectiveness? Yes, sir. Full defensive and full offensive capability. We're just playing by their rules. Colonel Zemke, your assessment. Zemke stood. Sir, this is the first truly innovative tactical solution I've seen since arriving in this theater. For 18 months, Fighter Command has only reacted to German innovations, adapting to their tactics. This is proactive. This makes them react to us. I recommend immediate authorization for limited trials. Kepner slowly nodded. Limited trials, 3 missions. If casualties exceed standard escort mission rates, we cease immediately. If we do not achieve significantly better kill ratios, we cease. If the Germans adapt and the advantage disappears, we cease. He looked directly at Dickman. But if this works, Colonel, I want every fighter group in the 8th Air Force trained in this protocol within 30 days. Silence once again filled the room. One more thing, Kepner said, looking at Weiss. Sergeant, are you the artist who designed this? Yes, sir. Do you understand that if this plan fails, people will die because of your idea? Weiss's voice was firm. Sir, people die every day because we don't have ideas. I'd rather try something than try nothing. Kepner almost smiled. Proceed. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where others perceive you as an easy target, yet you harbor an unrevealed power, merely awaiting the opportune moment to unleash it upon an unsuspecting adversary? What if apparent weakness is, in fact, the pinnacle of cunning, and vulnerability merely a meticulously crafted disguise? Today we delve into a story that forced the Germans to reconsider their air combat doctrine and demonstrated how a simple yet ingenious deception could completely turn the tide of events. In this narrative, we will uncover how just one aircraft, skillfully feigning damage, could lure entire enemy squadrons into a deadly trap. How could this seemingly obvious trick become so effective that it shattered established rules of aerial warfare? And what does this story tell us, not only about war, but also about the nature of human psychology, about how easily we fall into the trap of our own expectations? Stay with us and watch until the end, for what we are about to tell you will change your perception of tactics and strategy. We would be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you are watching this video from. So, March 22nd, 1944, in the midst of World War II. Another chapter of aerial confrontation unfolded over Europe. Mission 250, targeting the vital ball-bearing factories in Schweinfurt, Germany, was preparing for takeoff. The 359th Fighter Squadron launched 12 of its P-47 Thunderbolts into the sky. But this time, 8 of them were true hunters, and 4 were cunning decoys. Captain Holt led the decoy flight. His P-47, covered in artificial bullet holes and equipped with smoke generators, took up a position 2,000 yards behind the main bomber group. He deliberately slowed his speed to 180 miles per hour, dangerously slow for combat, but perfect for creating the illusion of critical damage. Activating the smoke generator, he released a white vapor trail into the sky, visible for miles, creating the impression of a severely crippled aircraft. At 24,000 feet, Lieutenant James Fisher, circling with a flight of hunters, meticulously observed Holt's performance through binoculars. "He looks absolutely shot up," Fisher radioed. "If I didn't know the truth, I'd call rescue myself." They didn't have to wait long. At 13:47, German radar operators reported a damaged American fighter falling behind formation and losing altitude. The report reached Jagdgeschwader 1, or JG-1. Hauptmann Heinz Baer, a celebrated ace with 179 kills to his name, immediately scrambled 6 Bf-109 fighters. This was standard doctrine: easy prey, minimal risk to their own, and an excellent opportunity to boost squadron morale. Baer spotted Holt from 8 miles away. The smoking P-47 swayed slightly, slowly descending towards the cloud cover, classic behavior of a wounded aircraft. Baer didn't hesitate. He led his formation into an attack position. 6 fighters against 1 seemingly crippled American. At 12,000 feet, Holt continued his performance. He saw the German formation above and behind, taking an ideal attack position. His right hand rested on the throttle, his left gripping the control stick. Every instinct screamed, "Break off, run, fight!" But instead, he continued to feign a wounded bird, fully trusting the 8 P-47s he couldn't see but knew were watching everything. The Germans began their dive. Baer aligned his sights, closing to 400 yards. Easy pickings, he thought. 179 Allied planes shot down. This would be the 180th. Then Lieutenant Fisher's voice crackled sharply over the radio. "Now!" Holt slammed the throttle forward. The crippled P-47 exploded with full power. The smoke generator cut off, and suddenly he was no longer wounded. This was a 2,500 horsepower fighter, flying at 400 miles per hour and gaining altitude. The fake damaged panels tore off in the airstream. In just 3 seconds, he transformed from victim to predator. The Germans had exactly 1 second to realize what was happening before 8 P-47s screamed out of the sun at 450 miles per hour, throttles at maximum combat power. Baer sharply turned right, but it was too late. Fisher's first burst struck the left wing of his Bf-109, riddling the control surfaces. Baer was too good to die easily. He managed to make a controlled crash landing in a field near Osnabrück, but his wingman, Lieutenant Werner Schmidt, was not so fortunate. 2 P-47s simultaneously trapped him in a pincer movement. His fighter disintegrated. This ambush lasted only 90 seconds. When it was over, 4 German fighters were destroyed, 1 damaged, 1 pilot killed, 3 captured, 2 escaped. American losses: 0. Not a single bullet hole in any P-47. Stay with us and watch until the end, for the most interesting part is yet to come. We would be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to write in the comments where you are watching this video from. Gun camera footage was studied for hours by intelligence officers who could barely believe what they were seeing. A crippled plane that wasn't crippled. An ambush in the open sky. Germans flying directly into a trap. They should have noticed it. Within 48 hours, Heinz Baer was interrogated by Luftwaffe intelligence. His report was immediately circulated to every German fighter group. American fighters are now using deception tactics. An aircraft displaying battle damage may be a fully combat-capable decoy for an ambush. Extreme caution is recommended when encountering apparently damaged adversaries. But this warning came too late. The tactic was already spreading rapidly. By March 24th, 3 decoy missions over Bremen resulted in the destruction of 6 German fighters, with 2 more probably shot down. American losses amounted to only one P-47 with minor damage from anti-aircraft fire. On March 27th, two decoy missions protecting B-24 bombers heading to Mannheim led to the destruction of 8 German fighters, with no American losses. On March 29th, a large-scale coordinated operation was conducted. Now, 6 squadrons were trained in decoy tactics. 12 decoy aircraft flew through the bomber stream. That day, the Luftwaffe lost 17 fighters. American bomber losses were the lowest in 3 months. This data became impossible to ignore. Before the decoy tactic was employed, from January to March 15, 1944, average bomber losses per mission were 5. 2%. The fighter-loss ratio was 1.3, 1 in favor of the Germans. Number of German planes destroyed to American planes destroyed. The survival rate for stragglers was only 27%. After the decoy tactic was employed from March 22nd to April 15, 1944, average bomber losses per mission dropped to 2. 8%. The fighter-loss ratio changed to 4, 7.1 in favor of the Americans. The survival rate for stragglers sharply increased to 73%. The 309th Fighter Squadron alone claimed 40 confirmed kills in 30 days, a rate usually achieved over 6 months. More importantly, bomber crews reported that German fighters became hesitant, double-checking attacks, breaking off engagements that previously would have been aggressive pursuits. German pilot Lieutenant Klaus Hartmann, captured on April 3rd, told interrogators, "We can no longer trust our eyes. What looks weak may be strong. What looks wounded may be a trap. We are told to be aggressive, but how can we be aggressive when aggression leads to ambush? They turned our tactics against us." The psychological impact matched the tactical success. German fighters began to completely avoid seemingly damaged aircraft, which meant that truly damaged bombers survived more often. The Luftwaffe's wolf pack doctrine, so effective for 4 months, collapsed in just 3 weeks. By April 15th, every fighter group in the 8th Fighter Command had at least one squadron trained in decoy operations. This tactical innovation spread to the 9th Air Force, then to the Royal Air Force, and then to the Mediterranean Theater of Operations. What if you were told that the most potent defense is not the thickness of armor or the destructive power of a weapon, but merely paint and clever deception? Many of us have faced moments when a situation seemed hopeless, when the enemy outnumbered or out-teched us. But what if there was a way to turn your own vulnerability into a powerful weapon, making the enemy believe what isn't true? In this narrative, we will unveil the astonishing story of how one of the most ingenious tactical innovations of World War II revolutionized air combat, saved hundreds of lives, and made the enemy dance to a different tune. How did a simple artist, armed only with a brush and an understanding of human psychology, change the course of battles? What incredible stories lie behind the dry statistics of saved crews? And most importantly, what lesson does this forgotten chapter of history teach us today, when the stakes in the modern world are no less high? Stay with us and watch until the end, for we would be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to write in the comments where you are watching this video from. In the European theater of operations, where every sortie could be the last, a need arose for something completely new. Here, under constant mortal threat, ground personnel retrained as true masters of theatrical illusion. Their task was to create damage on aircraft that looked absolutely real, yet could be easily applied and removed between missions. And at the heart of this unprecedented project, in the secret workshop of Hangar 7, Technical Sergeant Daniel Weiss was in charge. He didn't just train crews in the art of deception, he taught them a fundamental principle: how to make strength look like weakness. He instilled in them the idea that sometimes the best disguise is not to hide, but to skillfully lie. The impact of this single, seemingly simple innovation was colossal. In just 30 days, it saved the lives of approximately 180 bomber crew members who would otherwise not have returned home. This was merely a prelude to what would be revealed later. Stay with us and watch until the end, for we would be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to write in the comments where you are watching this video from. The final statistics, compiled after VE Day, revealed a story destined to be studied in tactical manuals for generations. From March 22, 1945 to May 8, 1945, squadrons equipped with these unique decoys achieved incredible results. They recorded 247 confirmed enemy aircraft shot down, demonstrating a kill ratio of 6-2-1 in their favor. This figure became the highest among all tactical innovations used in the European theater of operations. Approximately 890 bomber crew members survived missions from which, statistically, they should not have returned. This was directly attributed to the reduction in German aggression caused by the effectiveness of the decoy tactic. However, behind these impressive figures lie human stories far more important than any statistic. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman, the very man who approved the first trial of this audacious idea, retired in 1963 as a brigadier general. In his unpublished memoirs, he wrote with admiration, "We spent years developing better armor, more advanced weapons, more powerful engines. And then a sergeant with an art degree and a sketch on a napkin outdid it all with paint and psychology." The best weapon is often the one the enemy least expects. Captain James "Red" Holt was one of the brave men who flew the first decoy mission, and then 47 more such sorties. He survived the war with 12 confirmed kills and was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. In 1987, speaking at the Air Force Museum, he recalled, "People ask if I was scared to fly as a decoy, brother. Every mission was scary, but this one gave me control. I wasn't just hoping the Germans would miss. I was doing everything to make them see me. There's real power in that." Hobzemke, the legendary commander who actively supported and promoted this tactic, called it the most innovative use of psychological warfare I witnessed in combat. His fighter groups quickly adopted the decoy tactic as standard operating procedure, spreading this revolutionary technique throughout the 8th Air Force. And Daniel Weiss, the Brooklyn artist who became an unwitting tactical revolutionary, was awarded the Legion of Merit for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services. His citation, which remained classified until 1991, described his work only as the development of advanced camouflage methods. After receiving the award, Weiss humbly requested to be transferred back to his regular duties as a chief mechanic and thrice refused offers to receive an officer's commission. After the war, Weiss returned to his former profession in advertising. He never publicly spoke about the decoy program. When a military historian found him in 1989, Weiss gave a brief interview. "I just solved a visual problem. The Germans were looking for damaged planes. We showed them damaged planes. It wasn't genius. It was just understanding what people see and what is real. Advertising taught me that. You want people to see what you want them to see." When asked if he was proud of this innovation, he replied, "I'm proud we saved lives. I'm not proud that it was necessary." The fake damage program remained classified until 1991, holding within it the secret of saved lives. Even today, modern air forces continue to study this story as a prime example of an asymmetric tactical response, where deception was used to alter enemy doctrine without the need for technological superiority. The Israeli Air Force employed similar tactics in 1973, and the U.S. Navy used decoy ship profiles during the Persian Gulf War, proving the universality of the principle. Perhaps the greatest legacy of this story comes from the most unexpected source. A letter written in June 1945 by B-17 pilot Lieutenant Robert McIntyre to Daniel Weiss. Dear Sergeant Weiss, you don't know me. I don't know you. But on April 7, 1944, my bomber was hit by flak over Magdeburg. We lost 2 engines and fell behind formation. I called for fighters, not expecting any. Instead, 3 P-47s appeared, painted to look as damaged as we were. The Germans came. Your fighters waited. They shot down 4 before the rest fled. All 10 of us made it home, thanks to paint, thanks to deception. Because someone realized that looking weak while being strong is sometimes the best way to be strong. We're getting married next month, me and a girl from Baltimore. We'll have children. They'll have children. All because you thought differently about camouflage. I'll never meet you, but I wanted you to know. Your idea didn't just save planes, it saved the future. Thank you. Lieutenant Robert McIntyre, 381st Bomb Group. Innovations in warfare rarely come from those who are expected to produce them. They are born in the minds of outsiders who view problems from a different angle, unburdened by dogma and tradition. A commercial artist looked at aerial combat and saw a problem of visual deception. Experienced fighter pilots, in the same situation, saw only tactical limitations. Daniel Weiss's genius wasn't technical, it was perceptive. He understood that war is as much about what the enemy believes as it is about what actually exists. The Germans were convinced that damaged planes were vulnerable. Weiss turned that belief into their weakness. The lesson from this story extends far beyond World War II. In any conflict, the side that controls perception also controls the battlefield. The strongest position doesn't always look strong. Sometimes it involves making the enemy believe in your weakness until the moment comes when you prove otherwise. 40 German fighters fell for painted wounds and theatrical smoke in just 1 month. They fell for it because they believed their eyes. And someone realized that this belief could be weaponized. This isn't just a tactical innovation. It's an understanding of a deeper truth of conflict. The most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate. And sometimes, the most powerful weapon is a sketch on a napkin made by someone no one expected to bring about change.